Bringing you the very latest from here at home and across the world, this is Primetime News, live on News First. I'm Mahina Bongzo.
And I'm Ramashirugal Bandar. As always, let's start off with a look at the headlines. President Rajapaksa tells the Seychelles National Assembly that self-interest of states and their struggles for power has marred international relations. Minister Vasudev Nanakar says he will leave the government if provincial councils are abolished. Farmers in Polonnaruwa and Kantale take to the streets demanding fertilizer. Teacher unions charge that military positions are being given to teachers disregarding their age.
නිලධාරීන් ලෙස බඳව ගන්න පුළුවන් ගුරුවරුන් වයස 30ට අඩු.
Moving on to the stories in detail now. President Mahinda Rajapaksa says that modern international relations are marred by self-interest of states and their struggle for power. The president made this statement in an address during an extraordinary sitting of the Seychelles National Assembly yesterday.
President Mahinda Rajapaksa points out that colonialism, which was defeated a few decades ago, is resurfacing in a different form in today's global scenario. A communique issued by the presidential media unit states that the president had spoken about the emergence of new power blocks and how states use their powers to interfere in the internal affairs of other states. The president, who noted that threats emanating from these developments will be harmful to small countries such as Sri Lanka, had stressed on the need for cooperation between countries to prevent such interferences. President Rajapaksa states that at a time when Sri Lanka is trying to bring about national reconciliation and economic development in a post-conflict era, interested parties endeavour to undermine Sri Lanka's victory over terrorism and humiliate Sri Lanka in the international arena. The president had emphasised that in such a backdrop, Sri Lanka continues to rely on the support of friendly nations such as the Seychelles.
Demonstrations carried out by paddy farmers have become a common sight in the recent past. The main reason for these demonstrations is the required stocks of government-subsidized fertilizer not being provided to farmers months after farmers till the land during the Yalla season.
Over the past few months, farmers charged that they have not received stocks of fertilizer necessary for paddy cultivation during the Yalla season. Farmers point out that the fertilizer needs to be sprayed as soon as the seeds are sown, adding that the lack of fertilizer is threatening to destroy their crops. The Polonnaruwa and Trincomalee districts contribute greatly to the country's paddy output. However, farmers in these areas have to face numerous difficulties due to the lack of fertilizer. The farmer community in the farming settlement for Disad soldiers in the Polonnaruwa district staged a protest today by blocking the Polonnaruwa-Somawathiya main road. According to our correspondent in the area, vehicular traffic along the road was hampered due to the protest, which lasted over 3 hours. The efforts made by the police to intervene and disperse the protesters proved futile. All the paddy fields have turned yellow. If we don't receive adequate amount of fertilizer, at least within 10 days, the entire farmer community will be destroyed. Later, the police took steps to gather the protesters at the Sevagama Agrarian Service Centre and conduct a discussion with the officials. Later, the police took steps to gather the protesters at the Sevagam Agrarian Service Centre and conduct a discussion with the officials to provide the required stocks of fertilizer in the coming days. Meanwhile, a similar demonstration was held opposite the Kantale Divisional Secretariat, calling on officials to provide fertilizer stocks. Our correspondent said that the demonstration was held for over 3 hours. The Assistant Commissioner of Agrarian Development in Trincomalee spoke with the protesters at the Kantale Agrarian Service Centre. The Assistant Commissioner assured farmers that part of their fertilizer requirements will be met immediately. The protesters dispersed with this assurance in mind. However, the protesters charged that although officials make such promises to farmers, on many instances these promises have not been fulfilled.
The 21st Amendment to the Constitution proposed by Jathika Hela Urumaya parliamentarian Venerable Athuraliya Ratanathera in the form of a private member's bill repealing the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which established provincial councils and contains provisions for their powers, was examined by the Supreme Court today. The bill was examined by a three-member bench comprising of Chief Justice Mohan Piris and Justice Satya Hettige and Chandra Ekanayaka.
Prior to this, the Centre for Policy Alternatives had filed a petition with the Supreme Court, noting that the inclusion of the 21st Amendment to the Constitution, proposed in the form of a private member's bill by Venerable Athuraliya Ratanathera to the agenda of Parliament is illegal and requests the court to invalidate the bill. Represented the Centre for Policy Alternatives, Attorney-at-Law Viran Korea said the proper procedure prior to this bill being included in the Parliament order paper would be for the bill to be published in the Gazette and for the President to then refer the bill to all provincial councils before it is included in the order paper. Korea noted that as the procedure was not followed, the bill could not be included in the Parliament's agenda and as such requested the Supreme Court to invalidate the bill. Represented the Jathika Hela Urumaya President's Counsel Manohara De Silva said the Constitution has not vested the judiciary with total power and that the Supreme Court cannot hear cases pertaining to Parliament or parliamentary privileges. The President's Counsel noted that as the CPA petition seeks that a bill moved in Parliament not be included in the agenda, and since the Supreme Court cannot question affairs of Parliament, the petition should be revoked. Representing two intervening petitioners, President's Counsel Priyantha Jayawardena argued that as agreements to the proposed constitutional amendment would not be determined on the petition filed by the Centre for Policy Alternatives, the CPA's petition cannot question the affairs of Parliament. Representing the Attorney General, Deputy Solicitor General Indika Devmini De Silva said the question that must be considered in this instance is not whether the bill can be included in the Parliament agenda or not, but whether the bill is compliant with the Constitution or whether it should be passed through a referendum. The Deputy Solicitor General added that it is for Parliament to answer questions on including bills into the agenda and not the courts. Informing all factions to make written submissions to court on the 8th of this month, the bench noted that it would notify the President and the Speaker of its determination on the 12th of this month. Minister of National Languages and Social Integration Vasudev Nanayakkara warns that if the provincial councils are abolished, he will leave the government. Nanayakkara made this statement at a media briefing convened at the ministry today.
If the government works towards abolishing the provincial councils, I cannot remain in such a government. But you have to write it word for word. If the provincial council system is abolished, do not mention any amendments. I am saying it because it will not be done. I am in this government because there are provincial councils and because this government is dedicated to other populist policies. If I have any problem with this government, then it is to do with democracy. What this government says and does for democracy is insufficient for me.
Speaking further, the minister noted that everyone has taken an oath to uphold a constitution which contains the 13th Amendment.
The 13th Amendment to the Constitution contains provisions for provincial councils that are currently in the Constitution. We have accepted a constitution which contains this. We have taken an oath to uphold the Constitution, all of us. Therefore, no one can hold a special opinion on the 13th Amendment. It is part of the Constitution. If I am to speak on behalf of the government has no wish to do away with the 13th Amendment or do away with certain powers in the 13th Amendment.
The Lanka Samasamaja Party has decided to initiate disciplinary action against two provincial councillors attached to the party who voted in favour of the motion presented by the government for amendments to the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. Disciplinary action will be initiated against Sabaragamu Provincial Councillor Vatsala Janadari Padmasari and the Leader of the House in the Northwestern Provincial Council Samanpriya Herath. The Lanka Samasamaja Party says that the two provincial councillors had voted in favour of amending the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, despite the party taking a policy decision to oppose the amendments.
The Ceylon Teachers Services Union says that only teachers who are below 30 years of age can be recruited and invested with military positions. Convening a media briefing today, the union expressed this view over the demise of a school principal who was receiving training in Rantambe.
Pasal බල විදුහල්පතිවරු හමුදා තනතුරු ලබා
On one hand, this process of militarization by giving military ranks to school principals is in violation of the Mobilization and Supplementary Forces Act number 40 of 1985. According to this act, you cannot recruit in this way. On one hand, under this act, you can recruit students who are above the age of 16 as cadets, and in addition, you can recruit as officers, teachers who are under 30 years of age. They are recruiting these people disregarding all of these limitations. They have recruited persons who are close to 60 years of age. The government must put a stop to this. They must stop this game. Today it was Wickramasinghe. Tomorrow it could be someone else.
වික්‍රමසිංහ හෙට තව කෙනෙක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්.
The body of the principal who passed away while receiving training at the Rantabay Cadet Camp was brought to his residence in Akaravita Gampa today. The deceased was WAS Wickramasinghe, principal of the Sri Panyananda National School in Kottagoda, Radurugama in Negombo. The 53-year-old was a father of 3. He had arrived at the Rantabay Cadet Camp for the training program on the 28th of last month. Director of the National Cadet Corps, Major General Gamli Jayasundara, said the principal had taken ill during physical training last morning and was taken to the Mahayangane Hospital.
Colombo High Court Judge Kumudini Wickramasinghe issued summons on the Secretary to the Ministry of Finance, Dr. P.B. Jayasundara, and the Commissioner General of Inland Revenue to appear in court to provide testimony on the 23rd of July in the case pertaining to the VAT fraud. The court had granted permission prior to this for Dr. P.B. Jayasundara to be brought to court to provide testimony following a request made by President's Counsel Tilak Marapana, who is representing the first defendant. Although Dr. Jayasundara had sent a proxy to testify on his behalf, Marapana noted that this was unacceptable and that Dr. Jayasundara should appear in court in person. High Court Judge Kumudini Wickramasinghe issued summons on Dr. Jayasundara and the Commissioner General of Inland Revenue to appear in court and to bring with them documentation requested by the defence. Summons were also issued on 3 other witnesses to provide testimony on the 24th of July. Summons were issued on the Finance Secretary and the Commissioner General of Inland Revenue to testify on behalf of the first defendant, former Deputy Commissioner of Inland Revenue, Gnanasiri de Soisa Jayathilaka, regarding the VAT fraud case through which a sum of close to 40 billion rupees was embezzled.